Welcome to Soltron. Today I just want to do a really short video about these two customs I worked on lately. So they're really simple. It's of course the Legacy Red Alert and then Transformers 1 Alpha Trion, but it's technically I guess Shuffler. Okay, we'll start with Red Alert. So I really like this figure. I think he is one of the best Legacy figures that's come out lately. You can see I did carve out his mouth a little bit so it's more visible. And he obviously has this giant wrecking ball kind of weapon or spiked ball. And then he's got this really cool cross laser. So these two weapons came from the Tomika Drivehead series, which were really fun toys in their own right that kind of just like never really caught on. But I think these two weapons work really well for this figure. I really like his gigantic punching fist and his cross weapon. And it's cool, like this cross weapon, he can also hold it just like it's a grave marker or whatever. So that's pretty awesome. So this was a really simple mod. I just put this clear post right there so he can hold it as a gun. He does have this post which is built in, but when he holds it that way it just doesn't look as cool. And like the way he holds it with his new trigger just reminds me of Wolfwood from Trigon, which is very cool. And then you can kind of hold it over his shoulder, where you basically hold it like this, like over his shoulder, like Wolfwood would do sometimes. And then yeah, nothing special about this. It just pegs right into his fist. I didn't do anything to really modify that. Another thing I did to this guy is I did trim down like the little soft ratchets in his bicep because they were really difficult and they were causing like little stress marks. You can see right there on the plastic just from how difficult his forearms were to fold up. So I just did a little shaving on these hexagonal pieces, and that kind of clears that up a little bit. Let's see. I also had this piece in my weapons bag, so I just like trimmed it down because this was actually like 6mm, and this is from the Cybertron Defense Red Alert. So I think that looks pretty cool too. And then he can combine the spike ball and his cross to make kind of a club weapon. So there he is holding that. Very questionable whether he could actually wield this in combat, but that would be a pretty awesome weapon. And then the last thing I did with him is kind of maybe not as obvious, is I actually did lengthen his torso because originally his hips were almost right against his wheels. So I've added maybe like 5mm because this gap didn't really exist. So however big that is, that's now, he's that much taller, which I think helps because the only thing that kind of bothered me with this figure was that his torso was just like all smashed up and he looked like his torso was shrunken. So I did a pretty big mod to this, which was harder and more annoying than I thought it was going to be. So it's very ugly looking. I could probably just get a piece of plastic to cover this up. But you could see I just put a Lego ball joint right there. So he still has his waist articulation. He can do like an ab crunch if that's something people care about. But it's one of the weak Lego joints, so it's probably maybe a little bit too weak to be a waist joint. But he can still transform, and he still has his waist rotation. So I think this was a success, and it makes him a little bit taller, even though it's barely noticeable. All right, and here he is transformed, and that ball joint does get in the way a little bit, so he doesn't sit flush now because you can see this ball joint adds like 1mm to the bottom of his clearance. But you can see there's the assembly. So he still can transform without any parts forming. So that's nice. But yeah, it could have been done a little bit more elegantly. I might take another crack at this, honestly. I'm not completely satisfied with the way it was, especially that he can't roll now. Not great, but I think I think this does prove that his midsection was just too short though. And there's various places you can just peg this onto him. That doesn't look very good. Maybe like this. It's something. Okay, let's take a look at Shuffler. And this guy's just got such an awesome head sculpt. He really deserved a body, so... and then Alpha Trion's kind of the opposite. He had a really awesome body and a terrible head sculpt, so you kind of just kill two birds with one stone. So I kind of did the same thing. I moved his chest, so I raised his chest, and then I pushed it out a little bit, so his chest would stick out further than his shoulders, because Alpha Trion has like a really sunken in chest, so I think this actually fixes that. And then he does expose this mushroom peg, which does just let him separate. So I might put a piece of plastic here to just cover that up, but I don't really have like, so he's got the same problem as Red Alert. I just need to find a good piece of throwaway plastic that will look good on his body. And then it's pretty cool that he can use like this multi-missile launcher and then his cool lightning whip sword. And then the other thing I did to this guy is there is a ball joint on his beast mode neck. So technically his cape can be down here and then it can like articulate if that's useful for some reason. It's not really, but I kind of like it just up here where it kind of disappears into his shoulders so you don't really notice it. It's kind of just like a cowl kind of look. And then he transforms basically the same as normal. You can leave the head in place, which is a little bit more work than it's worth, so you can just like take that off. All right, and then here he is in unicorn mode, and I think you can see there are some improvements, like his hip and shoulder are further apart now because I've added like this little gap here. So just, well, actually, yeah, so these two joints are further apart so he doesn't look so stocky. And then his head is like a little bit more raised. It can be even more raised up to like here, but then he's kind of like looking up. But I think this is like a pretty good mode, so his neck isn't just always down in fighting position. And then since there is like a ball joint for this part, he kind of has some head articulation. He can kind of turn his head and look to the side like 15 degrees, pretty much nothing, honestly. But it is there. He can turn his head. So I think that's a slight improvement to this figure. I especially enjoy his new head because it was just too good for Alpha Trion. So yeah, that's those two customs. So yeah, let me know what you think. I can understand if you think they were failures, but I had a good time doing it, and I'll see you in the next one.